I could tell she was trouble from across the room, but Greg couldn't. It was easy for me to see through her disguise of the distraught housefrau, all worried about her husband's immortal soul, but my partner was oblivious, wrapped in the web she was weaving. I could almost smell the deception on her like cheap perfume, but Greg had no idea that he was walking right into a trap. Of course he didn't. She was the prettiest girl to talk to him since before we were dead, and he was barely listening, just sitting there trying hard not to get drool on his chin. I watched the debacle from across the coffee shop, pretending to sip a half-calf something or other and idly tapping on a laptop. The laptop wasn't turned on, of course. I was just using it as something to hide behind while I watched the leggy bombshell entrance my partner into doing whatever it was she wanted to hire us for. I just hoped that his mouth wasn't writing checks that my butt was going to have to cash again. I perked up my hearing and eavesdropped as the woman yammered on to my partner. Gregory Knightwood III, was listening with rapt attention until she came to the part where she said, "And now my husband is a zombie and I don't know what to do about it." She got a little louder than she wanted right there, and then looked around to make sure no one else had overheard. The hipsters in the coffee shop were too busy showing off their battered copies of Siddhartha to have noticed anyone except themselves, so I was the only one who was staring. After a few seconds, I got up and walked over to the table, ignoring the glare of the gorgeous widow. "Jimmy Black," I said, extending my hand to her. "The other half of Black Knight Investigations. Sorry to have been eavesdropping, but we try to vet all our clients before we take a case." "I understand completely. I'm Jane Clarkston, hopefully your new client," she said, looking up at me through a veil of blonde hair. From the pounding of her pulse, she was furious that she'd been deceived, but a lifetime of being the hot chick had taught her to hide it very well. I sat down and leaned in to make sure no one else in the shop could overhear. "Did you say your husband is a zombie?" I asked. "Yes, Mr. Black. A zombie." "And you're not talking about the type of Sunday afternoon football season zombie that every woman complains about from time to time?" "No, I'm talking about the type of dead of a heart attack and then got up and started walking around again zombie that no woman should ever have to have happen." Her voice went up a little, and I flapped a hand at her to be quiet. "How exactly did you think to call our agency?" I asked. "We have a few talents other detectives are lacking, but our Yellow Pages ad doesn't exactly say, 'Vampire detectives, we take the cases that really suck.' At least it doesn't unless Greg's been talking to the phone company again." "I Googled supernatural detectives. Your website came up and there's a whole section on the site about paranormal investigations. I thought to myself that it doesn't get much more paranormal than a zombie in the master bedroom, so I called you." I glared at my partner, silently vowing to have a long conversation with him on the definition of low profile when we were done with this case. But when I spoke, I tried my best to hide my irritation. "Mrs. Clarkston, how long has your husband been a zombie?" "Ever since his death." She smiled a tiny little smile, and I could almost hear Greg's heart melt. If he still had a pulse, I'm sure it would have tripled at that smile. "And how long ago did he die?" I prodded. "About a week ago. He was exercising one morning and he just dropped dead of a heart attack." I looked over at Greg. "I told you exercise was bad for you." Turning back to Mrs. Clarkston, I continued to probe. "And how long was he dead before he returned to life? Was it a few minutes or a couple of days?" "It was just a matter of minutes. He was walking around again before I even called the ambulance, but I could tell it wasn't really Alan." "How could you tell?" I asked. "Look, we can sit here all evening and I can tell you all about it, or you can take my case and come see for yourselves."